So my name is Lucy. I'm representing Flone Initiative. I'm currently serving as a program officer, and the organization was started back in 2013. We have over 9 years of implementing interventions, focusing on mainstreaming gender in the transport sector, advocating for safety in the transport sector, and also inclusion of women, people with disabilities, and also children, and to be specific, girls, in planning, implementation of public transport systems, policies to ensure that they are more inclusive and sustainable. So our vision is to have a world where people have all freedoms of mobility. So there are different ways that you can get involved. And number one, you can volunteer your time and skills. Number two, you can donate. Number three, you can support a woman in transport. And in this support, you will draw inspiration as I make my presentation. Number three, you can join the Women in Transport database. And this is a platform where we have a collection of women in transport professional profiles, where you can, if you are hiring a driver, if you are hiring a policy analyst in the transport sector, you can be able to access information and also the candidates there. And if you are looking for a job as well, you can be able to post your profile there. And then you can also interact with our website to see more of works that we are engaged in. And lastly, you can read our research papers that are on our website and see the data that's there about inclusion of women, also prevalence to sexual and gender-based violence in the transport sector, and also what has been happening since we started in 2013 up to now. So as I have mentioned, the organization was started in 2013, and by then there were increased cases of sexual and gender-based violence. And just to mention, we were the pioneers who started the My Dress, My Choice movement. And back then, people did not have a platform or an organization that was speaking on issues of harassment in public transport. And by then, we used to hear people being stripped in public, and we couldn't get data. We couldn't get a place where people are reporting. And for you to get those reports, you had to go back to the police, find out the information. And then you understand with the issue of confidentiality, it was so hard to get the data. So the organization was started to advocate for inclusivity and also safety for women as they use and also work in the public transport system, and also created a platform where they could engage the men in speaking against gender-based violence, and also promote and uplift the voice of women who are seeking opportunities, and also women who are using public transport system to ensure they were safe, and also they were able to go about their daily activities. So the founders identified 5 problems, and one of them was inadequate data, like people who didn't get data on sexual and gender-based violence. And also they couldn't get information on the opportunities, strengths, and also the challenges that are being faced by women in transport as they try to seek opportunities in the transport sector. Number 2, there are social norms. And when you talk about the social norms, the stereotypes about the job, and the transport sector is considered to be a male job. So few women will come into the sector because it's said it's not a space for women. So that was another challenge. And number 3, the transport sector in Kenya and also most of the African countries is informal. And when the government and also other stakeholders try to develop and come up with policies, these policies are not effectively implemented because most of the operators and most of the people working in the transport sector see it as a stepping stone to another job. So there is no that zeal of implementing the guidelines and the legal frameworks that are put to ensure that the transport sector is gender inclusive and also it's safe for all. Number 4, some of the pressing issues are not well funded. And for example, in Kenya, there's lack of that coordination between the national and the county government on which are the priority areas for the national government and which are the priority areas for the county government. So it's become so hard to fund gender mainstreaming projects, and especially in the transport sector. And lastly, lack of political will. Like some of the people do not want to fund, for example, in Kenya, to be specific, being a male-dominated sector, it's seen as a male job. So when you talk about gender issues in transport, the government or the county government might not take that keen interest in investing in it. So Flone initiative focuses on 5 thematic areas. And number 1, we focus on advocating for behavioral change. And in this theme, we normally focus on challenging the societal beliefs, gender norms, and expectation. We also focus on the role of men as active advocates against discrimination and exclusion of minority groups in the transport sector. And we also emphasize and encourage men to take to be active, and also to take that responsibility of speaking and defending sexual and gender-based violence victims and survivors. Number 2, we focus on generating knowledge, and we focus on research, and we document the findings, recommendation, and also we disseminate them to different stakeholders, and where they draw inspirations and they can pick up action points, and in that way they are able to incept new or build on existing programs and projects that ensure there's gender mainstreaming, and also ensure that the public transport system are safe and inclusive for all. Number 3, we focus on building a movement. And this is a thing that brings together different stakeholders that are at the policy level, at the advocacy level, trying to come up with call to actions to different agencies, emphasizing on the need to support women in transport, emphasizing on the need to create safe spaces for women and girls. And in this section, we basically focus on signing petitions, also developing press releases, and also coming out for procession that will ensure that the voices of women in transport are heard. Number 4, we focus on community engagement, where we engage different agencies and also stakeholders to come up with solutions, context-based solutions. And also we focus on ensuring that our solutions are from the community. Like, we don't impose solutions to the people come up with the solution themselves. And lastly, we have the partnerships and collaboration. And here we partner with individuals, government, NGOs, and public transport companies and other agencies to develop long-term innovations and solutions. We have a vision, and our vision is having everyone on board. And when you say having everyone on board, is to brainstorm and support ideas and solutions that will promote sustainable transport in Africa. Number 2, it's to support women and minority groups access skills and resources that will boost their meaningful participation in the public transport sector. As I have mentioned, the public transport sector is male-dominated. So by supporting women and the minority groups, we try as much as possible to ensure, to understand what are their skills gaps, what are their challenges. And in this way, we call on stakeholders to come up with, for example, resources, channel more resources to support the women in transport. Number 3, it's to have a paradigm shift where the communities and also different agencies and individuals will have a behavior and mindset change, and also challenge the norms and attitudes of community to embrace diversity, safety, and sustainability in the transport sector. And number 4 is to ensure that the existing policies respect the existing policies respect and support diversity, equity, and inclusion, and also ensure that these policy provisions are mainstreamed in the transport sector. For example, in Kenya, we have the two-third gender rule, but in the transport sector, less than 0.01% of the workforce is inclusive of women. So trying to challenge that and ensuring that the provisions in these policies are implemented is our vision, is our long-term vision. And then lastly, it's the transport system to explore and also utilize the expertise and also put into consideration the interest of women working and also who are aspiring to join the transport system, so that they can support them and build on these skills and exploit these skills in a good way to ensure that they are able to benefit economically, and they are able to move forward, participate in decision-making processes on issues affecting them, and as well as contribute towards sustainable development. We target 5 audiences, and number one, we work closely with vulnerable groups that include female commuters, people with disabilities, and the elderly. We also work closely with practitioners that include women in transport professionals, and also public transport industry agencies that include the public transport companies and also the managers of these public transport companies. And number 3, we work with policymakers at the county and government level to try and influence policies that are there and also the upcoming policies. And the last one, we focus on research. And in this section, we work closely with agencies and also individuals with research interest in the transport sector, and with a keen focus on those focusing on zero tolerance to sexual and gender-based violence, and also inclusion of all in the transport sector. So we have 5 programs, and the first one is Usalama Uma, that focuses on behavior and mindset change. And in this program, we focus on training male operators in the public transport on how to prevent sexual and gender-based violence, and also how they can take that active role in support survivors and victims of sexual and gender-based violence. And in this program, we also train on customer service, because advocating for inclusion and also safety for women start at the customer service level. We also have the second program that's called Women in Transport, that seeks to attract, retain, and advance women in transport professionals. And in this program, we provide professional development trainings to women in transport, such that they are able to be on that, or not equal level as men, but to get that platform to showcase their skills, and also get the opportunity to secure skills that we wouldn't have been able to secure if they were not supported, because, for example, others are single mothers, others have other roles, for example, children, and most of their income is basically to cater for their basic needs, so they can't afford these professional development trainings. And we have the third program, that's Women in Transport Africa Conference, that brings together researchers, policymakers, and other stakeholders in the transport sector in inclusive dialogues, and also engaging discussion that focus on mainstreaming gender in the transport sector, ending sexual and gender-based violence, and also how to engage policymakers and also government and non-governmental organizations in advocating for sustainable transport. The fourth one is the research. And in this, we have conducted several research works, ranging from developing the first draft policy on sexual harassment in public transport system. And this is the first policy to be developed since independence, but we are still working on it. It's still in the draft stage. We have policy briefs focusing on advocating for retention and promotion of women in transport, also advocating for inclusion of minority groups in the public transport. We've conducted baseline survey trying to showcase the gender differentials in the public transport sector. We've conducted research to showcase the prevalence and also the prevalence of violence against women and girls in public transport and the connected spaces. We've conducted research on implication of COVID-19 to women in transport professionals, and we've conducted accessibility report that this report basically showcases the vulnerabilities of people with disabilities as they try to access public transportation in Nairobi. And the data in this report can also be replicated somewhere else, because most of the African urban areas have quite similar demographics. And lastly, we've also conducted more research on we've come up with a gender toolkit, and this is a practical toolkit that can be used by public transport companies in Africa to ensure that they mainstream gender in the public transport system, how they can be able to ensure women are supported to secure opportunities in the transport sector, how they can be able to stop gender-based violence in the transport sector, and how women can be actively engaged in decision-making processes on matters of transport. Lastly, we have the Report It, Stop It, and this is data collection tool as well, and it exists in form of a crowd mapping platform, and we use this platform to map hotspots of sexual and gender-based violence in public transport and the connected spaces. And this platform has a map. It has, the map is able to show you where most incidences of harassment have occurred, what time did these incidences happen, what forms of harassment are these, and also the platform can also provide more info on where the survivors and the victims can report, where they can get help, the nearest hospital where they can be assisted. And right now, because we wanted to widen the reach of the platform, we've launched an app. It's called RISI, Report It, Stop It, where people can utilize the platform to report on these incidences. And in that regard, we as Flone, we are able to come up with intervention. And also the platform can be able to help members of the public in planning their commutes, because they are able to see on the map which are the areas that are more prevalent to sexual and gender-based violence. And also different stakeholders, for example, in the public transport system, be it NGOs who want to develop interventions, can be able to visit the map and see the incidences and be able to pick on intervention areas that they want to work on. Thank you so much. And the next slide is about how you can contact us, but I'll go ahead and share links to different platforms on how you can interact with our work, how you can get involved, and from there we can chat the way forward. Thank you so much, and I welcome your questions and input and everything that you feel free to share. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Lucy. There's a question in the chat from Avela. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. She asks, what is your biggest achievement that you have received so far, and what do you think is the most effective way for them to join your organization?
The biggest achievement for us is basically being that voice for women in transport, and be able to organize and bring together more than 300 women in transport together and organize them into women in transport chapters. And in these chapters, the women in transport can be able to showcase their skills. They are able to advocate for issues that affect them at that grassroots level, and they are able to be recognized. And at some point, and right now, people know there are women in transport, and women have the same potential that men have to invest and also seek opportunities in the transport sector. So, and right now we are working towards economic sustainability of women in transport, because majority of them are in those low paying jobs. For example, here in Kenya, we have the driver's role, which is considered the most highest at the operational levels. And then we have the conductor's role. This is the help of the driver. And this is a job where you earn based on how many trips you make if you hit the target. And sometimes these women are not able to hit these targets. And one thing that should be noted, like in Kenya, if you fall pregnant as a woman, you definitely lose your job. So you can imagine, like, you are jobless, you are pregnant, and you're at home, you can't come back to work. So we have been trying so much to ensure that we work closely with public transport companies, such that if a woman delivers, they are able to come back to the employment sector. But you are still fighting for that. So we've come up with alternative long-term sustainability for women in transport, where we have organized them into self-help groups, and these women are saving and supplementing their daily needs, and they are able to invest in long-term projects. For example, now they are thinking of buying their own vehicles, and they'll become owners. So they have money in their kitty, and they are going now to start now getting their own vehicles and being their own bosses. That way they are guaranteed of job security. Whether you are pregnant, whether you leave the industry, they are guaranteed. So I will say that is our greatest achievement. And then the second question is how best they can get involved. Is that correct, Dada?
Yes, that's correct.
So I've mentioned, number one, if you want to work with us or contribute to our work, or you want us to collaborate, you are so much welcome. Number one, you can volunteer your skills and expertise. Number two, we normally have a very engaging Women in Transport Africa conference where you can showcase your skills, and also your organizational profiles and the solution that you have. And you have a wider reach of about 30 to 40 countries all over the world. And also you can also sponsor a woman in transport, either to access a professional development training. You can also join the Women in Transport database, where you can be able, if you are looking for someone to employ, or if you are a job seeker, you can be able to key in your data and also your professional profile, and then we'll get people, the recruiters can be able to see your profile. We can also collaborate in research. If you have a great research that you feel need to be out there in regard to gender issues in transport, it's much welcome. You just need to write to us. And lastly, we also welcome volunteers on board. So feel free, and you can as well write to us. I'll post an email address where you can connect directly with me and our team.